Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show today is The Listening Mentor. This is a show where we really focus our time and our energy on helping you listen at a more elevated level. That means that we explore relationship topics, we explore things that are going on in the world, all of which come back to personal empowerment, setting boundaries, asking for permission, and listening. Today's topic is when we question everything, what does this mean? We're going to welcome the star of our show. She's known as the Harley Street Stress Expert, and she's helping people bust their stress all over the world. Welcome, Caroline Heward. Hello.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah.
Good to be back.
Nice to have you. I think this is the first time that you're actually in your new home.
Yes. I'm far from London. I'm about 90 minutes on the train from London, from King's Cross. But I'm still here. It doesn't matter where I am. I'm here with you and with this wonderful audience that we have.
Fantastic. I would love for you to share a little bit about your background for people who are joining for the first time. So your title is the Harley Street Stress Expert. What does that mean? And when you're talking about busting stress, what's involved?
Well, the Harley Street Stress Expert, essentially, I've been in Harley Street since 2005. Obviously, I'm not there anymore because I'm not in London, but I've been with them since 2005, which was about 17 years. And that's a long time. And essentially, Harley Street, it has a credential in Europe known as the place to go where all the good doctors and good experts are that are alternative. So why did I go there? Well, my background is marketing and PR. And essentially, I decided that if I was going to do therapy, I was going to get work in the right place, which had a good credential. So I passed with my credential check with the Harley Street Medical Board, and that's what put me there. And you have to have a license to practice. So that gave me lots of credibility in terms of being positioned at Harley Street. What do I do? Well, in my 23 years of working in stress management, I actually helped myself solve my own stress, my own depression and anxiety. Of things that I wasn't coping with in the corporate world. And because I learned things that helped me, I then wanted to help others. I wanted to help and give the same effect for other people without having to do all the painfully long study and long adventurous times that I done in my qualifications. So I literally help people bust their stress, and it doesn't matter what kind of stress it is, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, behavioral, whether it's relationship issues, whether it's intimacy issues, whether it's bereavement, anger management. I've covered it all because I've solved all my own challenges, and I want to genuinely help other people instead of taking normal medical route counseling and normal medical painkillers and medication, that there are natural ways to bust your stress.
Amen to that, sister. Excellent. So I want to get into our topic because just to go on the same path that you were just talking about with stress, we can stress ourselves out without anyone else's influence. And one of the ways that we can do this, and I've done it myself, is we start to question ourselves. We start to question our decisions. We start to question every single thing around us. And what I found is when I get into that kind of mode is that I'm not productive, which is also stressful. And then I have some self-loathing, which is also not productive. And it just goes round and round until you break the pattern. So I'd like to start off with this. What does it mean when we question ourselves in terms of just who we are? That's one part, and then we'll go into the rest.
Well, when we question ourselves, it's because we're not sure. And as humans, we have this desire to be right. We have this desire to not do things twice, to be right the first time. And so when we question ourselves, it's probably because we're looking to do it the right way, and we're looking in terms of a purpose. So we have a well-formed outcome, a meaningful outcome in terms of what we're looking for. And so if it's important and meaningful to us, we want to make sure that we have the outcome that we desire. And so the consequence of the fact that we question is because we're not sure. And so we're having an internal dialogue about, well, is this the right way? Perhaps I ought to seek external advice. Perhaps I ought to think about what it is that I really want. And sometimes that internal dialogue comes from because we're not sure what we really want. We're questioning the outcomes because we're not sure what we want as an outcome. We just want to do something to make a change. And so as a consequence of that, the internal dialogue or the conversation that we have with ourselves is like a check-in.
Sorry to leave you there. StreamYard button froze in my hand. I'm like, okay. So I want to just add on to what you just said, because I feel like when we do question ourselves, it's not surprising that other people start to question us as well. Question what we stand for, question the decisions that we make. But when we are in our empowerment, when we do believe in ourselves and other people question us, then that doesn't have as much of an impact, does it?
That's very true, because if we're not sure, then our vibration, our frequency projects out to others that they're not sure about us. Because we're not sure, we then give out that frequency of not being sure. And so the other person that's having that interaction, that dialogue with us, will also feel unsure, because you are. You know, behavior breeds behavior. So whatever we're feeling and thinking, if we're very confident, then the other person will be really confident with us. And so it is important to manage the way that you're feeling and thinking about something. So for instance, if I was having a bad day, not that I have very many, but if I'm having a bad day and having a challenging time, a stressful time with sorting out broadband, for instance, it's not a good time then to be speaking to a client, because I'm going to be very manual in terms of dealing with something that has to be done. And then my focus isn't in the same space. So I'll be very practical, logical, rather than in the heart space in terms of being with a client. And so I like to have administration days and then client days. And if I mix them up, I'm in a different frequency, I'm in a different vibration, and I'm probably not as open-hearted and that the client will be received in that way.
Brilliant. I agree with you. And I think if we segment even further, we could be questioning one decision that we've made or thinking about making, or we could be questioning our purpose or our path. So it depends what level the questioning is. But the title of this show, which interestingly enough, I came up with a few weeks ago, is When We Question Everything. And that to me means we really are at a point where we probably need some help. We probably need to be talking to someone, a coach, a mentor, a therapist, somebody, because we can't make any decisions with any clarity. You're the expert here. What do you think?
Well, if you have a problem that you're working through, it is very difficult to find the solution to the problem in the same consciousness that you created the problem. I know that sounds a little bit gobbledygook, but if you've created a problem and a challenge and you're sitting in it, it's very difficult for you to see past the challenge that you're in unless somebody gives you some different perspectives or insights or awareness in a different space. And so it is important to seek the advice or consult with somebody that can see your situation from their perspective, so they can give you feedback and insights from what they see. So it is very important to understand that even if you are a coach, a therapist, a mentor, somebody that's really, really knowledgeable, even in that space of your shoes, it's very hard to see your own solution because you're right in it. My mum would say to me, you can't see the wood through the trees, which means is that everything is wood because everything is bark, but you can't see the trees because you're covered in the wood.
Covered in it. Okay. So something happened today, which I told you about backstage, and it could have led me to question many things, but because I stand in my power and I know who I am and I've done a lot of work, I didn't question myself. But I'm just going to bring it up just at a high level, because this is the type of thing that could really rock someone and have them into a meltdown. So I was on a live show, and the show was about etiquette and manners, and someone I don't know happened to type in a comment that it was an excellent discussion, but that USA Global TV was dressed unprofessionally. So of course that would be me. So I happened to read it, and I thought to myself, I did think when I got dressed today about the off shoulder, because this can be perceived one way or another. And I thought, well, my brand is me. I'm the way I am. It's my platform, and I think this is great. So when the person said something, that inner thought process that I'd had earlier popped up for me. And then I realized that it wasn't about me. That person was putting what they put because they have some kind of insecurity or they have some kind of issue, but that's not me. So I immediately said to myself, I'm not going to question myself because I'm happy. I'm showing up again in this dress. But to someone else, especially being called out on air, on a live broadcast that's going to be out there forever, that could have been devastating.
Yes. And it depends how secure or insecure you are in yourself and what you stand for and who you're being. And I consider USA Global TV and Radio as you are the glamour of it, the USA movie star of the show, of the piece, and that's your branding. And I feel that's you have a look, a way, and it's very wonderful. Sort of the British are probably a bit more down key. I certainly don't dress in sort of very outlandish gear because I'm coming from a different place. I actually feel that I'm sort of much more simple in my clothing, and that's probably because it's about the message for me. And I was wearing a lot of jewelry at one point, and then I took it off because I actually felt that I really wanted to do transmissions. So it depends what the purpose is, what it is that we stand for, what we want to show up as, and everybody has their own brand. And so I wonder whether that person it's what we call in the industry projecting her views onto you in terms of how she was feeling about how she was dressing.
I think that's really insightful. I agree. And something I want to add on to that, and I think I've shared this on this show, is I worked in corporate for 28 plus years, and I never quite dressed like anyone else. And that was really by choice. But I worked at part of my career for a very conservative Midwestern company. And I was called out on the way I was dressed because I had blonde hair and red nails and red lipstick. And I was told by one of the executives that at the time, the chairman of the company, when he saw the color red, it made him panic because he didn't want to think his company was in the red. He wanted it to be in the black, which one thing has nothing to do with the other. So they asked me to tone down the way that I dress because they didn't want me intimidating the clients. And I thought this was very interesting because it goes back to questioning ourselves. Because having lived on the East Coast of the United States, very close to New York, people wearing whatever it is they want to wear. And in the Midwest, they're dressed a certain way, right? So my clients were in the East Coast. So it would make sense that I would be dressing the way I was dressed because that's how they were dressing. But the management didn't see it that way. They saw it as a reflection. I was a reflection of their brand, which was very conservative. So I dyed my hair brown and I stopped wearing red lipstick and I stopped growing my nails and I kind of just blended in with everyone. And I actually had a conversation with some of the clients at this one company. And I told them, and they said, that's ridiculous. We like you for who you are and for the value you bring to us. And it doesn't matter if you're wearing a hay bag or you're wearing a dress. So that's my point, that at that point in time, I started questioning everything because of what someone else in power was telling me that I needed to do. So I liked my job. I wanted my job, but I changed who I was because of their insecurity, which was if I look the way that I am, it might frighten the customers.
Whoa, that's really insightful. And that is someone projecting their values onto you. I actually saw an image consultant way back in my early corporate life. And I met her on 3 different occasions in my networking. And I went to see her on the 3rd occasion to get an image consultancy from her. And I was very corporate in terms of the way that I dressed. I fitted in. And in my corporate life, I was wearing what we called shift dresses, the very straight lace dresses and different colors, red, blue, black. And it was very conforming. And at the same time, it was, sort of still in dresses. And the image consultant said, every time I see you in a straight dress and you have curves. And I said, yes, this is my uniform. And I remember saying that word very clearly, this is my corporate uniform. This is what's expected. And she said, you'd be much better in softer colors, in more flattering and softer materials, like sort of floaty materials. And I said, that's how I wear, that's the kind of clothes that I wear when I go out. She says, so you're being yourself socially, but you're not being yourself in your work. And I thought that was really, really insightful. I was wearing blazers with sharp edges and very angular edges, and she was recommending round edges and softer fabric. And I literally changed the way that I dressed because of that image consultancy. And I felt freer and more myself. And I felt easier and more comfortable rather than fitting into a straight lined dress.
I love that you shared this. And I'm thinking of the analogy of straight line, straight lace, follow the rules. And that's all well and good. We need to have some element of that in us. But I think that people like us as individuals because of our differences, what makes us unique, what makes us stand out. And as you know, and I know from having my own businesses, that you want to stand out. You want to bring value. The most important thing is to bring value. And if you're bringing value and you're in a straight dress, that's one thing. But if you're bringing value and you're in a straight dress and you're not comfortable, you could still be bringing value and be comfortable. And it sounds like that's where you ended up going.
Yeah, it was extraordinary because I said the word uniform. I felt that it was my corporate, I had a corporate wardrobe, of straight, almost blazer type jackets. And that was an expectation of the way that you would have to dress. Things have softened and it's much more relaxing now that I can see in the corporate world, that there's more softer feminine jackets, more flowing material. But, sort of the women almost had to look like men, in terms of wearing trouser suits, blouses that look like shirts. Certainly the bankers here were wearing, I've seen many women that were dressed very masculinized. And I help a lot of those kinds of people because they wonder why, that their relationships aren't working. And that's because they're in a very masculine environment and they're dressing very masculine, and they wonder why they don't have the greatest intimacy in their relationships. And it's because they're actually coming from a very masculinized experience in their image, in their reflection.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think something also to take into consideration is when we think about questioning everything, we're talking about style and branding and how we show up. And I know for my whole adult life, except during the pandemic, I was always in heels, always. I prided myself. I had shoes that stood out. I never wanted to have shoes that everybody else had. In fact, when I would go into a store, I would say to the person, how many of these do you have? How many in this style do you have? Well, okay, I don't want it. That's not for me. But now during the pandemic, during the pandemic and after, I'm not wearing heels anymore. I'm wearing flats and wearing sneakers because I'm older and I don't want to take a chance of getting injured. However, I live on an island, and if I were walking around in a pair of heels, I would look ridiculous. But that's not why I don't wear them. I don't wear them because I don't want to trip and fall on the sidewalk and get hurt, because as we get older. So my point is, we can start questioning every little thing, but when we know why we're doing what we're doing, then it makes sense and we can justify it to ourselves. Not that we have to justify it to anyone. And I'll just give one more example that I'd love your input on as well. I was on I don't want to give too much information. I was on an event for work, and I was in the role of one of the staff helping do certain things. And so we had a uniform. And when it came time for the picture at the end, I went and put on a little scarf, and I tied it in a bow. And so the pictures then went back up to corporate, and I was called in after I got back. And the question was, you just had to do it, didn't you? You just had to put the scarf on. You couldn't look like everyone else. And I said, no, because I'm not everyone else. And this person said, why couldn't you just blend in and be like everyone else? And I said, because I don't exist to blend in. I'm here to make a difference. And I'm sorry if it bothered you, because it was on your time, you were paying me, but I still stand by what I did. And this person was very annoyed about it. So what about that when other people are questioning the decisions that we make about our own branding? We have to answer to them if they're paying us, right?
Well, this is conforming. This is the old phraseology in terms of business and how we're expected to show up. And conforming comes from uniform. So if they have a certain look and a certain way that they expect you to be, they're pushing that on you, saying, this is our brand and this is how we expect you to look. And then it's up to you whether you decide that that's the right company for you. Certainly we have that kind of approach in a lot of the banking industry, where in the UK, we're expected to wear pinstripes. I don't know whether that's still the case now, but I still see very pinstripe suits, both for men and for women, sort of blazer jackets. So there is a look and a way that you're expected to turn out. Even in the very hot summer months, the men still have to wear their jackets, and women still have to wear their blazers and their shirts, blouses. And so it's very important to, if it is that type of company, to understand that that's their look, and it depends on whether you want to be part of that look.
I agree with what you're saying, and I have some follow-ups to that. So if I worked for an athletic wear company that has a brand that everyone knows of, and I go out to meet with clients and I'm wearing a competitor's brand, okay, that's a big problem, because I'm a brand ambassador and I'm wearing someone else's clothes. If I'm hired to do a job, I go through the whole hiring process, which is not like 8 steps, background checks and this and that. And I show up the way I am, and then I start the work and you don't like the way I look. Well, that's the same way I looked for 8 interviews. I didn't change. I'm still the same person. And I'm not selling anything on my body. I'm selling a service, a product, whatever it is. You never mentioned during the interview process that there were certain requirements of how you had to dress, because there are no uniforms. There's a handbook, there's a manual that states you can't do this, this, or this. But if you're not doing any of those things, then it should be acceptable. They're my thoughts. What do you think?
Well, I have heard, and this is a really interesting conversation,
They
because
always are.
I have heard when men have their hair long, they're told to make it go to cut it short, or to wear it tied up so that people can't see that it's long. Or if they're wearing earrings, that they're told to take out the earrings, otherwise they can't be taken seriously. So they've gone through the interview process the way that they normally look. And then when they've got the job, they're actually told, well, no, we don't like this. We don't want you to dressing this way. And then there is this need to conform, where they've passed, with flying colours, everything else. And then there's like, well, if you're going to work for us, this is how we expect you to turn out. So I do appreciate what you're saying here. And this is going also in schools. When children are wearing their school uniform and they're sent home because they're wearing jewelry, or they're wearing makeup, or they're wearing their skirt too short. So this is when people have this power, or control, where they want you to conform to their requirements.
I think everything you said is spot on. I also think there's an element of personal judgment and also fear. And what I mean by that is, for the longest time when I was in corporate, the handbook stated that you had to wear stockings, you had hosiery on, you couldn't wear open-toed shoes, you'd have to have your shoulders cut. I mean, all of the rules that go in there, and no tattoos, no piercings, etc. And then someone realized that whether or not you had tattoos or piercings could have little to nothing to do with your ability to produce. But they didn't want people who saw you thinking that you worked for their company, because they did not believe in piercings, tattooing, etc.
It is about the strengths of the person that's at the top, and what their values are, and what they believe that you should be, and how you should turn out. And who's to say they're right, wrong, or indifferent? It's their company and their rules. There is a lot of people, and I don't really say this lightly, that are control freaks, in the top positions. And while you're working for them, they can be very dictatorial in terms of what they expect you to turn out like. And this is where somebody's very much in their control and their power, and forcing that control and power onto the employee. I want to give you a little bit of a backstory of that somebody that's enforcing that much control is because internally they don't actually feel in control of their own life.
Interesting. I love it. Drum roll. Now, here's something that I want to bring up, because we're talking about questioning everything. So if someone says something to you that causes you to take a step back and reflect on what it is they said, I think one of two things can happen. Maybe there's a third or fourth, I don't even know. But if I took what was said today, what was written today about the way I was dressed, I could start going down a rabbit hole thinking, maybe I am unprofessional. Maybe it's been going on for a long time, on and on and on, as opposed to looking at the specific situation and realizing that it had nothing to do with me. But we do that all the time. And sometimes, as a therapist, it can be devastating, because then the person was strong and clear on who they were. And now the very core of their foundation is shaking. And now they're looking at every possible thing they can and ripping themselves apart.
Well, this is the insecurity, our humanness, that we do have insecurities at different levels, at different times. And it depends on who we are being at that time. And if we are having insecurity issues around our dress code, or around the way that we're handling a situation, then that will appear, and other people will jump on that. And from my perspective, it is that if you are comfortable and confident in who you're being and how you are showing up in various situations, and in that situation where you've been called out, then I call it water off a duck's back. It literally, the comment just rolls off you because that's their stuff, not yours. And that's what I found really interesting in your response, that your response was, well, I like the way that I dress. I'm very comfortable. Is this really about you? And when it does go back to the person, it's the fact that you didn't take it on. You didn't take on their stuff. And so it goes back to them to deal with, because what they were doing is projecting their stuff onto you. It might be that that person is insecure in terms of the way that they appear and show up in their normal everyday. And so they might have been almost pushing their values and what they think onto you, because it's really their stuff and not yours.
Fantastic. I have another one I'm going to be throwing at you right now, which is, and I'd like you to think about this as a therapist and also as a woman. So I was very adamant about being treated with respect. My father was all about respect, respecting your parents, respecting this, that, and the other. So what I would find is people would be more interested in how I looked than in my accomplishments or in my brain. And I would get frustrated with that. And the feedback that I would get would be, well, look at the way you're dressed. Now, I was never dressed like low cut, but I am dressed this is the way I am. So use your word glamorous. And so I would come back, my retort would be, so I can't be glamorous and intelligent? Why can't I be both?
Oh, yes. I've actually had this said to me. I was running a breakfast group meeting. This is a really, really interesting topic. I was running a breakfast group meeting as chairman, and I was handing over the chairman's role and sort of giving all the stuff, to the new chairman. And at that point, I was actually then single. I'd just gone through a very sticky breakup and going through a divorce at that time. And I was giving all this really, really good advice and handing over the way to do things to the incoming chairman for the breakfast group, which is all voluntary and unpaid. And he turned around to me and it was very unasked for. I just thought it was really hilarious. And he said, Caroline, you're going to have an interesting time. And I said, why is that? And he says, well, the thing is, he said, you don't kind of fit, in the single world. He said, because men put you into two categories. And I said, go on, tell me more. And he said, well, you're either plain and, very intelligent. And I said, okay, yeah, I get that. I get why you would think that. Sort of very academic. And then he said, and the other side is that you're either very pretty, have nothing between your ears. And I said, right, so where are you going with this? And he said, well, there's a problem here because you're very intelligent and you're very pretty. And men don't know what to do with that. And I said, right. He says, so you're going to have a problem, going back to being single. And I just said, right. And I didn't really know what to do with that. And so I just thought, well, okay, that's obviously one man's opinion, but I have been told that by several people, that men feel threatened by people that are women that are intelligent as well as have beauty.
And I can totally relate to what you're saying. And it's really kind of, I don't want to use the word sad or pathetic, which I just put out there, but put on top of it that not only are you beautiful and you're intelligent, but you're a successful business owner. So those three things together, I guess, are terrifying. But why would they be terrifying? Because the man he's not good with himself. He's not confident with who he is. And you're going to upstage upstage him. And again, that goes back to him. But I do think that as a single woman, as single women, it is more difficult for us because of the fact that we have these wonderful traits that we really take to heart. And we're also very heart-centric people. So I don't know what the available pool of single men out there is looking for, because I've been out of it for a while, but I think that it's threatening in some ways.
Yes, and I know a lot of very, very pretty ladies that are single, that have been in relationships that are single now, and they're still single, very intelligent people. And I always find it really fascinating that, you know, they have friends, but the relationships aren't there. And I do think that there's something in what this incoming chairman said to me, you know, that intelligent, pretty women are threatening, you know, that the men don't know what to do with them. And I also remember a guy that I really got on really well with. He was a few years older than me. And he was telling me he was getting married, and he was very good looking. He was gorgeous. He used to drive around in a Porsche. And, you know, sort of when I was very young, it was wonderful to have a lift from him. And he was just really, really like the man about town. And then I saw him with his wife, and I said, well, why? You know, you're gorgeous. You know, why have you taken a wife that's just so plain? And he said, do you know what? He said, she'll never leave me. And he said, I need a woman to be in the house, to do the cooking, to look after me. I need the woman to be in the home, so she never leaves me. And he said, if I went for a really pretty girl, he said, I've had my fun with the pretty girls. And he said, and actually, I want to make sure my woman stays with me and stays at home. And I just thought that was really, really sad and also insightful, because I see a lot of men with what I would say are plainer women rather than really highly attractive women. And I do wonder whether there is something about that insecurity.
That is the exact word I was thinking of, insightful. And I am on the same page with you, because I've seen the same thing. And I think to myself, that's interesting. He's so this, and this, but it makes sense. It makes sense in how a man is thinking, because there's some key words that you said: lose, doesn't want to lose. So it's an attachment to, and doesn't have to, I'm going to go the other way, possibly could be taking this person for granted because they are there cooking, cleaning. The person knows they're going to come home and that person's going to be there, as opposed to someone who possibly has a busy career. Maybe he's traveling around, maybe he's doing a lot of entertaining, going to events. That person could feel threatened by the fact that their partner is out doing something and could possibly meet someone. But that's someone who's insecure, because I'm sure there are many couples out there where this is the case and there's not a problem.
Oh, yes, it is definitely a fact. I've seen many couples this way, and this is why I think there's an avalanche of very pretty, very glamorous women that are highly intelligent and successful, and there, you know, so where are all the really nice men, you know, that are looking for no competition, actually an equal? I do feel that it's an interesting dichotomy that we find ourselves in.
And I have another comment to that, as I see we're sadly coming to the end of the show, because I always love our conversations. But it's also, if you think about it, as a career person, you have a lot of pressure with clients, with giving your time, with running the books, with the whole thing, you know. And now you go home and you've got pressure there because a lot of reasons, which we don't have to go to. So if someone's thinking, okay, I have this very stressful career and business life, and I come home and I just want it to be quiet and peaceful and talk about what happens in the house or what happened with the kids. And I'm not diminishing anything. I'm just saying this is the rationale that some people take.
Yes. Yeah. And I've just seen so many men take the plainer, the quieter, the less intimidating women as partners, as their future wives, as the person that they want to spend the rest of their life with. And I almost feel that sometimes it's the safer bet.
That It's the word I was thinking of also, safer. So, well, my dear friends, sadly, we have to go, but I'm looking forward to our next encounter. Let people know how they can reach you. And again, who is it that you are looking to contact you?
Well, you can reach me by email on nomorestress@live.co.uk, or reach out to me by call +44 if you're international, 07523 120 189. I offer a free 30-minute consultation, and I will literally help you break through any symptom, whether it be physical, emotional, mental, behavioral, whether it's a relationship issue, an intimacy issue, whether it's a physical ache and pain or anxiety, depression. So one symptom, and if you want more, because we're all walking around with more than one symptom, then I offer packages in terms of helping you manage and bust through root cause therapy. I work with the chakra psychology and break through your symptoms using root cause therapy from that perspective, and you will feel more relaxed, more peaceful. Who would I like to help? Well, we're all walking around with some form of stress. So generally, people that are having a tough time, whether it's relationship, bereavements. So anyone that's feeling that they just can't cope anymore, take advantage of that free consultation.
Thank you, Caroline. And I'd like to mention also that people can also see you on A Woman's Prerogative on Mondays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. British Summer Time, and also for your Talking Heads expertise. And that is on Tuesdays at noon Eastern Time, 5 p.m. British Summer Time. And by the way, are you loving the new thumbnails?
Oh, yes, I really am. You are really making me look very glamorous.
It's not me. I hired someone. So he's doing a great job. I'm very, very pleased. Every day I go and I see more thumbnails. I'm like, yeah, I love it. So, all right, everyone, we're going to be signing off. Our next show is coming up. We have a new title. It's called Coexistence and Sustainability with Pet Psychic Amina, where we talk about a multitude of things about saving our beautiful planet, Mother Earth, and also helping each other and giving space for all creatures, big and small. We'll be back. Take care. Bye, Caroline. Bye, everyone.
It's been fun. Bye-bye.
Bye.